Now, the 2023 presidential election was an exercise that attracted international attention, and so is the outcome. Well, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has congratulated the president-elect, Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for emerging victorious in the election. A chairman of the ECOWAS authority, Umaru Sissoko Embalo, appealed to politicians in the country to promote peace and use constitutional means to address any grievances. Countries like the United Kingdom, United States, and France have also congratulated the president-elect. Meanwhile, reports show that the voter turnout for this year's presidential and National Assembly elections drops to about 26.70%, despite a steady rise in the number of registered voters in the country since 1999. BK, well, let me begin with you on this matter. What's your opinion, first off, on the recent appeal by the international community to political leaders now in the just concluded elections to promote peace and, of course, use constitutional means to address any grievances? Let's start with that.
Yes, I think it makes sense to use constitutional means to ventilate your disagreement, your anger about how the election went. Inciting our people to violence is not what we want to see at this time, because the people who incite our people to violence, they are usually not the victims of the violence. They sit in their homes and try to encourage young people to take to the streets to put their lives in danger while they are ensconced in their own homes along with their children, some of them just lounging and waiting to hear negative stories. So the world does not want to see Nigerians slip into violence, and that is why they are saying, look, use constitutional means to show your anger, show your disagreement with the outcome of the election. There is no need to resort to violence. The world does not want to see Nigerians slip into war because it will be disastrous. We are a big nation in terms of our population, and if we should have any war break out on our land, and the refugee problem, our neighbors cannot cope with the refugee problem that will result from war in our country. So that's why everybody is terrified of the prospect of war, breaking out in Nigeria, because where would people go? And in all wars, as Delegiwa said, those who die are those who do not deserve to die. The people who beat the drums of war, they hardly die. The people who started the war, the civil war in Nigeria, how many of them died? Yet in that war, we lost more than 1 million people.
True.
And so this is the reason the world continues to appeal to our political leaders to allow peace to reign, to use constitutional means to pursue their, to resolve their differences and to get their message across. And the message is, we disagree with the way this election went, but you have to do that through constitutional means.
Right. Now, Adekunle, how do you think this appeal will impact the political climate in the coming weeks or months?
Well, it is a good thing for global leaders, especially respected voices from across the world, to appeal to our politicians, because the political class in Nigeria, they are the kind of people that you don't want to say terrible things about.
Right.
They are always very terrible in terms of putting their interest first. They don't care about any other interest. They only care. They are always desperate. They are always insistent on winning. And many of them are not Democrats in the true sense of that word. So they just find themselves playing, playing the game of politics. But the truth is, it is okay. I want a situation whereby some of these leaders, if not all of them, will heed this clarion call. That's the right thing to do. If you watch recent election in Kenya, it was more, volatile in terms of the atmosphere. Everything, the country was divided. Everybody thought there would be war. And when you look at the dynamics, it was even higher than what we had in Nigeria. And you saw an incumbent president going back to make peace with his long estranged foe and turning against his deputy. Now, like 3 enemies, 2 became, two who used to be bosom friends became enemies. Then we used to want Odinga, join it. But at the end of the day, the election was won and lost. And one thing that I would expect Nigeria to do is to follow that example laid by Kenya.
Right.
Despite all the predictions of war, of violence, of everything, the Supreme Court there, everything. Do you know what happened? The president, the outgoing president, was able to unite the loser and the winner. The winner, who happened to be his former deputy friend, became his enemy. Then Odinga, who used to be a former prime minister, and long-time foe of the president, they became friends close to the election. And before you know it, but he was able to bring the two together at a public, function. And in the presence of, cameras, all Kenyans watching, they were able to shake hands. Each of them made peace and made commitment that Kenya is bigger than each and every one of them. Just like in Nigeria, this country is bigger than President Muhammadu Buhari, is bigger than Atiku, is bigger than anyone. So now election has come and gone. The ultimate thing is we have our country intact. There is no violence. Everybody is happy. And if there are people that are not happy based on the results, the avenue is there. The law has been so good enough to create avenue for you to vent your grievances. Please go to the courts. If you don't believe the results are what should be, the court will help you to do justice to your case. That's the beauty of our democracy.
Right, well said. But, BKO, with what Adekunle has pointed out, definitely he made reference to what the Kenya elections and how things have panned out. But, what other lessons can we learn from other countries that have faced situations like this in terms of promoting peace and stability after an election?
The one thing that I see clearly is that the West, yes, they criticize us when we don't get things wrong, things right. But they also know that no system is perfect.
Right.
There is no election that is perfect. Tomorrow, Donald Trump still insists that he won the last election and that the election was compromised. So when technology, because the main issue that is pushing people to say this last election was compromised was the fact that INEC did not upload results real time on the IRF portal. But INEC has complained that the system kept freezing on the day. This same IRF portal was used for off-season elections, and very successful. People were able to see results online in real time. But an off-season election cannot be compared to a a general election like this one, where we had so many millions of people taking part, voting, and since 1999, people register for the election represents the highest since 1999. You know, yes, on election day, the figures didn't actually match the zeal and enthusiasm with which our people registered for the election. Of course, many factors could be responsible for that, including the cash crunch.
The first gas.
Yes, people were going through all kinds of agonies. And when people are not happy like that, to go and exercise their
franchise.
Yes, will not even be a consideration for so many of our people. So that's that. The point that I'm making is, when you look at Obamacare, for example, their own portal to faced this kind of problem. People couldn't log in. People are disappointed. In fact, Republicans continually use that to attack the government. So, and the contractors' complaint was that, yes, we did a good job, but government didn't really put this thing to test before the website went online. So with technology, problems are common. It doesn't mean that, you can actually buy a car and in test running it, you discover that it has a problem. Look at how many units of Toyota cars had to be returned because of problems that they did not know at the beginning were present in those vehicles. They had to recall thousands of those cars. So, yes, we've had people are right to say no. INEC should have uploaded the results, yes, on the portal in real time, right, while the election was on. But if it gets hacked or if there are problems, definitely you do not expect INEC to not take steps that will ensure that the election is saved. The most important thing is, are those figures the same figures that emanated from the polling units?
Right.
Because it's actually the end product that you still upload. So if the figures match what emanated from the polling units, then no one can say that this thing, that the election was rigged. But if the figures that emanated from the polling units were tampered with, then you cannot argue that the election was not rigged.
But apologies for holding your thoughts there, but if I remember closely, the INEC chairman said that the INEC is ready to conduct the elections, and also from the polling units, results will be uploaded from the polling units to the portal on the election day. So when this happened, people, residents, citizens were not too pleased about how the arrangements was done, and so the outcome seemed as though it wasn't transparent. So, but
the transparency of an election,
right,
is manifested in different ways. Let me tell you, the main kernel of transparency of this election is the BVAS machines. Because in the past, we used to have multiple thumb printing and all that. The BVAS machine ensures that it is you and no one else that can vote. Captures your facials and your other biometric elements. You cannot vote if you are not the owner of that card. In the past, they used to simply write results. And yes, they just write results, and you see 1 million, 1 point something million. A lot of those numbers are not real. This election has shown it. A lot of those numbers. Even me, that I was saying, look, let's expect the votes that will come from some places. I saw that in some of those places, just 250, because they could not bypass the BVAS. The law says you must use the BVAS. You can't bypass it the way they were bypassing a card reader. So that beavers is the single most important tool for ensuring free, fair, and credible elections. But our people have also found a way to rig elections without actually going to the polling unit to exercise their franchise. When people attack polling centers and they suppress votes from coming from that polling center, it is rigging. INEC says if there is if violence occurs anywhere, then the result will be cancelled. There are politicians who deliberately go to where their opponents are strong to cause violence. And if you see the number of places where ballots were cancelled in this election, you see clearly the influence of violence in the entire process. So the point that I'm making, uploading, what is voting? The most important thing is whether those numbers were the same.
Tallied.
Yes, whether it tallied with what occurred at the polling centers, which were signed by the agents of the respective parties. That is the most important thing. That's the most important thing. So, but if they are saying that, oh, there were difficulties and all that, how then do people use it? There was also even the threat of hacking. There was also the threat of hacking. Even in America, they said the Obamacare website was hacked. And we don't even have in terms of competence.
So no technology is foolproof from what you're trying to tell me?
No one. That's why I used the Obamacare as an example. No one can say that it didn't happen in the UK. In the US, it was a big embarrassment. People couldn't log in. People spent hours, yet they could not log in. And this was not what the government promised. The government also promised that, look, you'll be able to subscribe to the Obamacare and all that. But it didn't happen. So in our election, from the first few hours of that election, there were difficulties. And what INEC officials are saying was that this thing that had worked perfectly during the off-season elections, suddenly on election day, was difficult for people to access. So it's not, even now, they've accessed more than 73% of the results. So people can check and see whether it matches what transpired at the polling centers.
Right.
So even the West and other people, they will know that there is no election that is perfect.